lives one day at a time. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. They're here to get your day going fine. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio.
And here's your host, Miss Kim Robinson.
I stay right with the rock, homie. Won't catch me slipping.
Nah. Hey. Underdog like a rocket, but still a champion. Eye or the tiger, I'm getting strong, and yet it's evident. When my God with me now, who can stop me better yet? I ain't met a person yet. When the rock with me, come and flex. I just thought that you know. Come and kick it like judo.
This is Khadevis Robinson, and welcome to the Khadevis Robinson Challenge. Today, I want to speak to you about staying focused. When I'm thinking about the things that's going on now, I think about situations in which we get distracted on life. And what I mean by that is, a distracted mind is a defeated mind. And right now, no matter if you turn on the radio, the TV, the internet, all you're hearing about is the recent results of the election and why one person's doing this and why another's doing that and why this is not right and this is wrong and why they can't see this and see that. And if you're focused on others and you're focused on all the evil, then you can't keep your focus on yourself and focus on good. Here's what I like to say. I like using the Bible as a way to explain events. In the Bible, you look back and you see these events occurring, and you start to ask yourself after you read it, like, why didn't things happen differently? For example, in the Bible, Moses is going to the Pharaoh, and he keeps telling the Pharaoh, "Hey, man, listen, we've been enslaved for so long, and it's not right, and everybody knows it's not right, and we've done everything we could. Sure, we could do better, and we've made some mistakes, but we've done our part. We work hard, we stay to ourselves. We do the things we're supposed to do, and all we want is for things to be even. We want things to be right. We want equality. We want freedom. We want all these things that a basic human being can have. And of course, Pharaoh wouldn't listen to him. So Moses decided to, let me speak to God and see what God says about this. So Moses speaks to God and asks him questions and communicate with him. And God said, well, check this out. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the Pharaoh, and I want you to tell him, hey, listen, if you don't do this or if you continue to do that, this is what's going to happen. Now, obviously, after a while, you would think that the Pharaoh could see. You would think that the Pharaoh would say, man, hold on, this is amazing. Like, these people continue to prosper. These people continue to multiply. Their numbers continue to increase. They continue to have favor. Yeah, they have some downfalls and they have some setbacks and all those types of things, but for the most part, they continue to move forward. You would think that the Pharaoh would look and say, man, we're having a lot of things happen to us, whether it's natural catastrophes or whether if our birth rates are getting lower, we're having less children. But the Pharaoh wouldn't, and people just could not understand why. And now people couldn't think, why didn't the Pharaoh take heed? Why didn't he listen? Well, there's a very important section in the Bible that explains that very clearly. It says, and God said, I will harden his heart. Now, that's a very important section. So God said, I will harden his heart, and he would not do what he's supposed to do. Obviously, Moses goes and tells him, and just as God said, Pharaoh didn't do what he was supposed to do. God hardened his heart and ended up punishing him. And so the question that has been asked is, why would God harden the Pharaoh's heart and then punish him for it? And that's a logical question to ask yourself. But you have to look at what is meant by harden his heart. And the reason I bring this up is because we have to understand in our lives that God can use anyone and anything to prove a point or to give us the lesson. You know, in my book, When Seconds Count, I give examples of saying that the most likely of people, the most likely of circumstances end up having some of the biggest influences on my life. That's why I call it When Seconds Count, because sometimes we think that we have to be in the midst of a miracle, in the midst of a burning bush for things to really count, for those seconds to only count, for us to really recognize what God has to work in our life. But no, what I'm saying is, it says, when the book is entitled When Seconds Count, in minor moments, major things happen, meaning in those moments that you're really not expecting the major things, those are the times that major things happen. So the Pharaoh ended up doing, when God hardened his heart, he did exactly what God thought. He didn't do what he should have done. And the question is, why would God do that and then punish him for it? Well, you got to understand the concept of hardened hearts. You know, the way I look at it when I'm reading, I'm studying, is that, you know, when you do something, no matter who the person is, any human being, whenever you do something, let's say you do something what would be considered bad, it now becomes easier to do that thing again. You get what I'm saying? So the first time a person goes and steals, it's probably kind of tough. You're probably scared, you're probably nervous, you're probably anxious, you probably don't know what to do. You're like, oh, I shouldn't do this, and you're fighting yourself, you steal. The second time, it's a little bit easier. The third time is much easier. The fourth time, when you read about murderers and killers and all these kinds of people, you hear them saying that the first time they were so scared and anxious, but then it became easier and easier. That's because their heart has been hardened, you know. So when God was saying he hardened his heart, it wasn't as if God was saying God himself hardened the Pharaoh's heart. God set it up in such a way that the way we are built is that when we do evil or bad things, our heart gets a little bit more hard. Just the same as whenever we do good, morally good things, our heart gets a little bit more soft. You know? So we're able to do more good. We're able to do more caring. We're able to do more loving things when we do one, when we take that first step, you know, because God has softened our hearts. But vice versa, when we do bad things and we do one bad thing, God hardened our heart, and it's more difficult for us, or it's more easy for us to continue to do more difficult things. So that brings me back to where we're at now in this day and time. In this day and time, people are walking around saying, why did this person do this? How are they able to do this and continue that? Why is this happening? You know, I don't understand this. You have to understand that God is not finished with none of us. So we think that the time in which God was speaking to us and the time in which miracles were done and all that are over. We think that God don't speak to people like he used to speak to people. We think Moses was the only person, or maybe the last person that God spoke to. Come on now. You know, some of the works that God did back then, he's still doing them. And so with the hardening of the hearts, do you not think that God is still hardening hearts to this day? Have it not passed your mind or your thought process that maybe God is hardening some of these people's hearts out here? Because we know that they should know better, maybe. In other words, you know, history has told us that anybody that tries to oppose God will lose. So you say, okay, if you look at history and say, okay, use slavery for an example. If you look through history, any civilization that has promoted or has slavery has fallen. I mean, that's just history. It don't have nothing to do with me saying it. Just look at history. You know, you look at the Egyptians, the Romans. It don't matter which one it is. All of them has fallen. They always very powerful superpowers as countries and as nations. You know, and if you look at it, it's probably more powerful and more had a more of a stronghold in the world than even the USA has now. But what I'm saying is, if you look at history and some of the events of what people have tried, the people and the events have tried. I mean, you look at Hitler, right? And you go, okay, this guy had this idea that this one group was more than this other, and he's going to try to do this. And if you look at all the incidences that happened, it had to be God. I mean, how in the world could this happen? And then the scientists that end up developing the weapon, the atom bomb actually was Germans, and they used to be in Germany, but they migrated over to the States, and it happened that when Germany was going over to Russia, it had to be one of the coldest winters at the time, so they couldn't get all this stuff over there. All this stuff happened at the same time in order to make sure that Germany didn't actually succeed in what they were trying to do. province. So what I'm saying is you have to understand that it's not meant for one group, of people to totally annihilate or destroy another group. It might happen for a couple of years. It might happen for a decade. It might even happen for a century. But eventually, they will fail. It's just history. It's just the way the things are written. So you would say, that being the case, wouldn't people see that? Wouldn't other places and people see that this is not the way that things are going to go, that eventually history will tell the story the right way? Nelson Mandela was in prison for doing what, he thought was right. At the time, they say he was a terrorist. He goes to prison for 30 years, comes out, becomes president, and becomes the most lovable, most admired person in the world. Now, who was the people who imprisoned him? Who knows? No one will remember their names. But we remember Nelson Mandela's name, right? Martin Luther King, at the time, had a disapproval rating of 50 or 60. The government was against him, the whole nine. But he keeps going there, assassinating them. But everyone knows Dr. Martin Luther King's name. His legacy will live on, And he got the legislation passed, But the people who was opposing him, where are they at? Who celebrates him? No one knows. Gandhi, Mother Teresa. I can keep naming. So you would think that people would see these actions and know that even if you're up and winning, supposedly doing your harm or evil now, that you would know that, in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, no one will remember your name. And the ones who are fighting for God, fighting for justice, fighting for good things, that history will see them in the right way. Even if they don't see them in the right way now, if you're fighting for what's true, diversity, good in people, history will see you in the right way. So this goes back to hardening the heart. See, the thing I'm trying to say is we look at that and say, don't they know from history that doing right or working together is going to prevail? So why are they continually to try to go down that route? It's because God has hardened their heart. So it's not your job when God hardened their heart to say, this, and argue and fight and get distracted, because a distracted mind is a defeated mind. It's your job to say, okay, I get it. God has hardened their heart. They say when I was a kid in the African American community, it used to be said that some people got to feel it to believe it. Some people you tell them, hey, don't touch that fire. And there was some kids you said, don't touch that fire, and you scream, don't touch that fire, boy. They wouldn't touch it. They'll start crying because you screamed at them. And there's others that's like, okay, as soon as you walk off, they're going to touch the fire and burn their hand and come cry to you. Like, okay, well, he had to feel it to believe it. There are some people in which God has hardened their heart. They have to feel it to believe it. And it's not our job to get distracted by that. It's our job to continue to do God's work for us, whatever our job. It's like it was Moses' job just to present the information, even though Moses knew that the Pharaoh wasn't going to do what he was asking him to do. He knew it before he got there, and he was thinking, okay, well, let me ask. Even though he knew what did he have to do, God said, you still got to go tell him. You still got to do your part. He's going to say no, but go do your part. That's what it is for us. It's not for us to fight. It's not for us to ponder. It's not for us to worry. It's not for us to have fear. Do our purpose by God. So when seconds count, we don't have time to sit back and fear. When seconds count, we don't have time to sit back and worry. When seconds count, we only have time to do what God put us here to do. And history will be on our side. If God hardened his heart or hardened her heart, they're going to do what they do. It's not our job to sit back and get distracted, because a distracted mind is a defeated mind. My challenge for you today is to resist. And I'm talking to myself most of the time, to resist the temptation of trying to convince people that the direction they're going in, the thing that they're doing is wrong and won't be successful. It's not my job. It's for them to find it out on their own journey. My challenge is for you. My challenge is for me not to get into these arguments over on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. Because we can see and say, hey, man, don't you understand that it's meant for people to be free? Why do you think it's not? Hey, man, don't you understand that God is a God of all people? it's not our job necessarily to be fighting, arguing, using energy on that. It's our job to do what God put us here to do and have faith and confidence that it's going to work out in the right way. Either it's going to do it now, or it's going to do just like it did for Gandhi, just like it did for Mother Teresa, just like it did for JFK, like it did for Martin Luther King, just like it did for Muhammad Ali, just like it did for Mandela, just like it did for Malcolm X. That even if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, that history will be on our side. And if history is on our side, then we never died in the first place. Our name will live on. That's my chance for you to resist it, at least for this week. Resist that temptation of letting it upset you and festering you when you go and you read somebody post that's saying whatever it's saying. Resist the temptation when you see somebody walking around and wearing something that upsets you. Resist the temptation when you see these laws enacted that you know is going to hurt the majority of the people. I'm not saying don't oppose them. I'm saying don't get distracted by them. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it hold you back. You have somewhere you have to be at a certain time, and God's going to meet you right there. And if you get distracted, you just miss the bus. It's like being on a flight. Sometimes when you got to take a flight and you got to get there, you know, and you're running to the airport with your bags and stuff, and you got to take this flight because there's no more flights going, and you got to be there, and they say, well, you know what, you're going to have to check your bags, and it's going to take a while, and they might not go through it. Sometimes you got to leave that baggage there and say, I'm going to take it without my bags, and I'll get there, and I'll figure it out once I get there. I might have to buy some more clothes while I'm there. Sometimes you got to be there at a certain time. You don't have time to sit back and be held back with baggage. Like Erykah Badu said, bag lady, you're going to hurt your back carrying all these bags like that. So my challenge for you this week is for you to let go of that and understand God's still with you, and let go of the distractions and understand that there's some people in this world that God has hardened their hearts. So don't let them distract you. Just keep doing your work, and God will soften your heart, and it will continue to be softened. This has been Khadevis Robinson. This is Khadevis Robinson Challenge. Bye, holla.
Yeah. God Squad, bruh. That life you living, man, you can't afford that. Nah. Yeah. Could've saved any soul, but you saved me. Yeah. My life's a game to the devil, so he played me. Life for the world so pricey, I hope you got the racks. But that money ain't gon' save you when them demons come attack. You can't afford that. They want your life and not your paper. But when Jesus put the bill, say see you later to them haters. That's real talk. I get in the whip, say a prayer, and then I feel lost. Had a talk with the Lord for real, y'all, and he told me demons still soft. Can't hang with the name of Jesus, so why would I complain? Stump the devil in my Adidas. Got Jesus on my brain, homie, get on my level, cause I'm on the winning team. But the Lord loves us. John 3:16, don't start no stuff. I don't care how it seems, we'll get the last laugh. Up in heaven with the king, my heart was empty. I'm so glad that Jesus filled the hole. Y'all, my God is in control. Say your soul, no doctor show. Can you bought me at a price? I can't afford that. Lord, you saved my life, so I ain't going back. Been in there at night. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Look, you paid the cost to be the boss. I can't afford that. Hell's eternal loss. I can't afford that. Dying on the cross. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Nah. No bank account full of dollars, no mouth full of grills, no house on the beach, no shine on the wheels, no polo on my back, no diamond on my wrist, no Lambo outside. I push a 06, the fame and the riches, the dubs and the switches, involved with the word, but the world was my mistress. No blunts in my hand, no hand mixed with coke. I'm on my Christ swag. My friend is the ghost. No more hanging late. Papa was a rolling stone. I'm at the altar. The kingdom now is my home.
Evil never sleep, tomorrow never promised. I can't look back now, can't afford it to be honest. No more backsliding, I'm in the front seat. Elevated, now I praise him to a crunk beat. He paid for my sins, a post-dated check. Ordained a minister, a post-dated
Okay,
check.
you bought me at a price. I can't afford that. Lord, you saved my life. So I ain't going back, sitting there at night. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Look, you paid the cost to be the boss. I can't afford that. Hell's eternal loss. I can't afford that. Dying on the cross. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Nah.
Okay, he laid it out, I paid the cost. For half this world to say didn't walk. For half this world to say didn't breathe on these dry bones when we straight from wrong. To hell with these enemy spirits. My job is to bring up 2 children. As long as they call and hold on Jehovah, I'm all about my father's business. I can't afford your company. Your wicked tongue stop corrupting me. I'm on cloud 9 and not heaven bound. All shall go down with no hope around. I'm praying and hoping you listen. Good faith through a repetition. I came as a vessel, my strength is his armor. I can't afford to be missing. Through vision, he sent me a mission, obeying his every intention. With walking with greatness you live, Jonah, you end up with belly with fishes. I can't afford a physician, I can't afford ammunition. Jehovah my tower, I look to the mountains to seek whatever is missing. I can't afford your energy, I can't afford you hating me. I know Christ had to deal with Pharisees, but don't tempt the God that dwell in me. I can't afford no stress in me, been rock bottom with no air to be, so I can't afford church, can't afford not praising God for the air I breathe.
Okay, you bought me at a price. I can't afford that. Lord, you saved my life. So I ain't going back, sitting there at night. I can't afford that. I can't afford that. Look, you paid the cost to be the boss. I can't afford that. Hell's eternal loss. I can't afford that. Dying on the cross. I can't afford that. I